Welcome back, everyone, to our next segment on Cityline today. I am thrilled to have Burl Bartlesby, the executive editor of The Voice of Tacoma, A Gathering of Poets, here with me on the comfy couch today. Burl, welcome.
Thank you.
It is wonderful to have you here today. And I know that you were just here in January, but remind us, what is The Voices of Tacoma, A Gathering of Poets?
Great. So Voices of Tacoma is partly funded by the Tacoma Artists Initiative Program, and we are writing an anthology, creating an anthology of poetry of, about, and or inspired by Tacoma. And the result will be published in October, the anthology itself. But the real amazing part of this project has been the community and the sense of community we've created with our monthly gatherings and with the workshops we've held.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
All about Tacoma.
Exactly, yes.
It's a great thing to be about as we're sitting here in the city. Now, what's new with the project, and how many entries have you received for it so far?
Great. So we had an open submission process that closed on January 31st. At that point, we had 167 poems submitted by 64 poets. And so what we did was we took all the poems and we had a panel of 10 editors who went through and we ranked all of the poems. And in doing that, we've selected the poems that we will be publishing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
A great selection process for that.
Yes.
Now, you showed me when we were in the green room, and I know that we've got the video for that as well, a map about the poetry submissions by zip code, which I found fascinating.
Yes, yes. So what we did was we looked at the demographics, and as you can see on this map, we have a broad range, but our distribution wasn't representative of all of our population. So in the middle there, you can see each diamond represents a poet who submitted, or a group of poets. And so that middle section is the Hilltop and Central Tacoma, which was great. We had a lot of submissions from that area, but we only had 2 from the east side, which is by zip code the largest population of Tacoma. So 98404, we only had 2 poets submitting. So that led us to understand where we need to focus our energies as we move forward. And then on the next map you can see here, these are the actual zip codes that we missed. So we didn't have any submissions from Northeast Tacoma, from South Tacoma, from the Lincoln District. So again, it was information that we used from that demographic survey that really helped us to understand that. And of the 64 poets, we had 50 that submitted their demographic information. So it was truly representative of the population.
It's a great return rate on that.
Yeah.
Now, you had a March 9th writing workshop.
Yes.
And you received some community feedback from that.
Yeah.
Can you share what some of that feedback was?
Yes, thank you. So with the Tacoma Tree Foundation and Blue Cactus Press, there was an event that was called Urban Canopy. And at that event, we had an opportunity to hear from the community. So a group came into that event and we had an opportunity to talk about this project and share with them that some of the same demographics that I also shared, but we also talked about the racial diversity of the poets that submitted. And in looking at that, we had 85% of the poets that submitted identified as white, which if we look at Tacoma population overall, the 58% of our population identifies as white. So in looking at that with the community partners, and many of them were from the Hilltop Urban Garden, so they came together and gave us some, we were very fortunate to get their feedback and their thoughts. And they openly said we should consider not publishing if we weren't going to be more representative of Tacoma. So what we did was we went back and looked at our original mission, which was to represent the voices of Tacoma, and we realized that they were absolutely right. We needed to reopen submissions, which we've done, so we are now open again for submissions through the end of April. Wonderful. Yeah.
And so how can people submit if they wanted to?
Great. So we will be taking those submissions. The easiest way is to email just agatheringofpoets@gmail.com. And those submissions will also be, just like we did the first round, are going to be reviewed by an editorial panel and selected through that process. We will have the opportunity to look at the areas that we missed. So looking at those neighborhoods that were that were missed or underrepresented, and then also looking at getting more BIPOC poets to submit their work.
Wonderful. And so, who are you looking to hear from?
So mostly BIPOC poets. We're open for submissions, and we're open to everyone, but we're really focusing on looking for BIPOC poets from all of those areas that we missed.
Now, a question about poetry is a very large media.
Yes.
Do you accept all kinds of poetry?
Yes. So what we did was we're asking for poetry of, about, or inspired by Tacoma, which, as you can imagine, is a broad selection. And what we did that intentionally. We didn't want to create a barrier for any poetry that we wanted to include in the submission process. You also don't have to be a citizen, or you don't have to live in Tacoma. You can submit from anywhere in the world. You can have just driven through Tacoma at one point. But if you were inspired to write something of, about, or inspired by, we want to have it in the anthology.
That's wonderful to know.
Yeah, yes.
I can think of some fun things of Tacoma that could be inspiring to
Yes,
poets
yes.
all around. Now, what other poetry events do you have coming up?
Great. So with April being the National Poetry Month, there are several events that I wanted to share with the viewers that are happening here in Tacoma. And the first one is actually happening tonight at Matisse Beauty Supply. That is April 11th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We'll be gathering in their community conference room. And the next one is actually there's 3 parts to this. And the first one is this Saturday, April 13th at Swayze Library. The second one is a week later on April 20th. And then there is a third component to that is in May. Those are going to be facilitated by our Christy Gledhill. We have Creative Colloquies. Tacoma Writes is on the screen now. Tacoma Writes is Julie Baldock, and they meet monthly, and that is a writers group. We have Tacoma Community College has their 2nd annual National Poetry Month gathering at the Gig Harbor campus, and that's Poetry in the Harbor. There are 2 events that Voices of Tacoma is hosting. One with Celeste Schuler is facilitating a writing memory, and that's on the 18th at Moddett Library. And then I'll be facilitating one at South Tacoma Branch on the 23rd. And then last but not least is the 2nd annual UW Tacoma Poetry Festival, Between the Lines. And that's on the 29th of April. And that is open to the public at 5:30.
You have a lot of poetry going on.
Yes.
And then just, let alone in our community, we have so much poetry going on.
Yes, yes.
As people see these events, but also with Voices of Tacoma, how do they get more information? How do they find out about what's happening poetry-wise?
Great. So the primary opportunity to get the information is really through Instagram or Facebook, but you can also email agatheringofpoets@gmail.com, and we'll share more information. We partner with the libraries. A lot of our events are at the library branches, so you can also find information there on their calendars.
Do you have any words of inspiration for people who might be thinking, can I do poetry?
Yes. Well, we are accepting poetry from everyone who considers themselves poets or who feels inspired to write poetry. And so all ages have submitted, and we encourage folks. We have held workshops, and we continue to hold workshops to help people to get more confidence with their writing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off script of questions we've talked
Sure.
about. What drew you to poetry?
I was inspired by rock and roll lyrics. The Doors, Bob Dylan. Growing up, I wasn't of that age, but I was a generation later, heard that music and looked at the authors, or the lead singers, if you will, and discovered that most of those were also poets. And so read their work, and that got me into the more classical side of poetry.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's, as you say that, I keep thinking too, is there's so much poetry all around us that we don't realize all of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And lyrics to songs, lyrics to anything we hear.
And
really.
What is so much fun is I'll be anywhere in Tacoma talking about this project, and the people that tell me, oh, I write poetry. that I would never have expected to be a poet, right? And so it really is a great way to connect.
And then you immediately show them the QR code and say, great, we'd
Exactly.
love to have your submission.
Submit.
What's next for you, Burl?
So there are several things that we're working on. We are working on with the Tacoma Historical Preservation, Tacoma City Historical Preservation Office. Month is Historical Preservation Month. And so the event that we're looking at is Discovering Tacoma's Stories. So we're looking to partner with them. We also have Porch Fest, which was hugely popular last year. Bands on porches. We will be the Poets on the Porch. And that is on July 20th. And then the Hilltop Street Fair as well on August 24th. Beyond that, we're looking to be launching the book in October.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Burl, for being here today and letting us know all about the Voices of Tacoma. And particularly, mark your calendars for that October release date of the collection of poems all about Tacoma.
Yeah.
It's going to be great to see those come, and I can't wait to read some of them. Now, when we come back, we're going to be joined by our final guest on the Comfy Couch today, the Puget Sound Revels. So we'll see you back in just a moment.